A pleasure to welcome to 1010XL World Headquarters, the one and only Mayor Donna Deegan. Donna, thank you so much for not only hopping on Helmets and Heels, maiden voyage, but also in studio. We always love having in studio guests.
This is so fun. I love this, and I love your show. I think it's great to have women talking sports.
Absolutely.
People don't always think about us when they think of sports, and they should.
Lauren said to begin the program, while Taylor Dahl may be on vacation, we still have 3 sports-loving ladies
That's right.
in the building here
Yes.
on HQ, and we're excited to have you join us here
Absolutely.
on a Wednesday edition. Let's start with this, Donna. For those who may be unfamiliar, your sports fandom. Who are the teams you root for when you're a young kid? How does your sports fandom evolve over the years?
Well, FSU obviously is my love for college football. I graduated from FSU at the height of the, shouldn't say in the height of the Bowden years, but certainly while Bobby Bowden was still there and making quite an impact, and fell in love with college football. But obviously, I grew up in Jacksonville, so went to the Sharks games, or not, what were they called then? The Bulls. Went to the Bulls games. And I remember all the turmoil, all the years. I was here for Colts fever. I was here when we packed the stadium. I was here for the Oilers, tease that we had for a while. So, I mean, my family always has just been enormous. My father went to Florida. I went to Florida State. So
Smart
always
man.
a huge rivalry. And my kids split too. I have one kid that went to FSU and one that went to Florida. So you know which one's the favorite already.
The son went to FSU.
I love them both. I love them both equally.
Of course. And by the way, it was just Mother's Day. So happy belated Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Let's talk about when the city of Jacksonville got the Jaguars.
Yeah.
For people who were born and raised here, they understand we were such an underdog city to be able to get an NFL franchise. For people who I think have recently moved here, they've just always known them as the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they wouldn't have really understood how much work went into it. Like you said, Jacksonville was talking about getting a franchise, a football team for a long time.
Yeah. And we got a lot of teases on that front. And if you remember, we almost fumbled the ball right before we actually got the franchise, because there was this big standoff between the city council and Touchdown Jacksonville over the cost of the stadium. It was a little deja vu as we were doing the stadium stuff. And now it's funny because now that I'm in this office, I could just imagine what those conversations were like. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they were about to throw away this, this opportunity. And look, and the arguments were understandable, right? That there was really no cap on what they were going to pay for the stadium, and they were worried about and again, the public was split, but obviously at the end of the day, it worked out for us. And as somebody who has been I always say Jacksonville has an insecurity complex, right? Nobody believes in us here as much as other people that come in seem to believe in us. And so, I think all of us were utterly stunned when it actually worked out. And I always say that I think at that moment is when Jacksonville realized it was a can-do city.
And I think that this is what people don't realize about you, Donna. Like you said, you were there for Colt fever.
Yeah.
You recognize, and to your point, because this is something I dealt with, and obviously I'm a transplant.
You weren't born
here.
then, I don't think.
I was not born. I was not born for that.
I just graduated from high school.
Yes. I was not here for that. I got here in 2018, and I remember vividly sitting on my couch in March of 2020 and thinking my job is about to be obsolete because of the COVID-19 pandemic. There will be no sports.
Yeah.
And my dad called me. And he said to me, I don't think you realize how lucky you are. You are in one of 30 cities in America that sports, one way or another, are going to go on because you have the National Football League.
Yeah.
And look, the National Football League back in 1995 is not what it is here today in 2025.
Sure.
But certainly it echoes that similar sentiment of you have an amazing opportunity by having an NFL franchise in your city and elevating the profile of your city.
Absolutely. It is something that I'm not sure there is another thing that has happened in this city that has been more transformative than getting the NFL. And I remember so vividly, I was anchoring the news back then. And I was sitting on the anchor desk, and we were all just on pins and needles. We were starting to sort of hear little inklings here and there of things, and then we're watching the monitors, and we see Dan standing there, and Duron Cherry walks out, and Dan screams at him, "Duron, do we got the team, Duron?" And he gives the big thumbs up. And I mean, I'm getting, just chills thinking about it. And we all just, exploded in happiness. I still have that yellow newspaper someplace that says we did it, But in terms of our identity as a city, I talk about this all the time when I have my town hall meetings, and people are like, how can we spend this money on a stadium when we can't? I don't think people understand necessarily unless they actually, are at the games or see some of the things that happen because of the game, some of the business we get, some of the perks that we get, some of the things that it moves us forward as a city. I don't think they understand necessarily the entire impact that the NFL has, and it has such an enormous impact. But as a mayor, what I love the most about it is that it brings people together from all walks of life. Nobody talks about politics, thank goodness. Nobody cares about anything beyond the fact that they're all in love with their team, or they're mad at the same time. Which is always just so fun to watch. It's just a fun thing to watch. People get mad and then they get happy, and all together.
The roller coaster. It's part of the fun. It's part of the content.
That's right.
The Jaguars unify the city because when I was growing up, before the Jaguars were here, it was Florida State, Georgia, right? Like some Miami, but you belonged to one of those factions.
Right.
And
that's
so if
your
you're
tribe.
not together, then you would have those divisive conversations. But with the Jaguars, not everyone, because there are people, like I said, that weren't born here, that have moved here recently. But for the most part, everyone's a Jaguars fan. Even people who have moved from other places, I think eventually the Jaguars kind of creep into their number one as far as NFL teams.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because they realize what it does for the city, to your point.
My kids grew up with that.
Right.
I mean, my son is probably a bigger Jaguars fan. Now, he got a little frustrated last year, but he is probably a bigger Jaguars fan than any, and he's huge fan of a million things, which you probably already know. But he also a big FSU fan. But Jags number one, big time. Big time.
All right, so let's bring in the FSU and Jaguars conversation, because a certain guy that was recently drafted almost went to FSU, but at least now he's a Jaguar.
Yeah, I was so excited that Mark Lamping called me up on the day that they were bringing him in and said we're bringing Travis in. You want to come over? And I went, what do you think? So I was so excited to come over and meet him. But I said, when I got to stand up and talk to him, I said, listen, you were in the doghouse before today because you were supposed to go to FSU, and that's my team. And he goes, have I redeemed myself now? And I said, yes. And yes, you have. You are officially out of the doghouse. But it's funny because I was standing and Tony was right next to him. Mm-hmm. And so I turned to Tony, and the next words that came out of my mouth were offensive line, offensive line, offensive line.
There we go. Okay, so there we go. We led the show with offensive line. We weren't lying when we said we have three sports-loving ladies here at 1010XL World Headquarters, and Taylor Dahl's on vacation. Donna Deegan, the mayor of Jacksonville, joining us, filling in for Taylor Dahl. As a Jaguars fan, for you see Travis Hunter, and obviously you're looking at it as he's going to elevate our play on the field as much as he's going to elevate the profile of the city. But there's still some other holes that have to be addressed.
Well, of course, for him to be successful, for Trevor to be successful. I mean, I cannot tell you how many men over the years have mansplained to me why we don't need to draft for the offensive line. You clearly don't understand football. We can take care of those needs, in free agency. Really? Well, how many years have we been saying that, right? And so when I said that to Tony that day, I had said it to him so many times. If we do not go out, I'm going to put you in uniform and I'm going to make you go back out there. And I was so excited when we drafted Wyatt, because I thought, okay, at least we're. And he told me we're working on it. We're working on it, So. But no, it's wonderful, this team, I think, that we're putting together, and I'm super excited about the management group. I think that everything that comes out of their mouths, I've really liked so far. So we'll see. Obviously, it's all talk until we get on the field, but it really does feel different.
Have you adopted intangibly rich an ecosystem into the mayor's office conversations?
Well, it's funny because one of the things that I always say to people, and I said it in my inaugural speech, and I say it to my staff all the time, because, people can ride on politics. So, this is the end of the world, or this is the greatest thing. And I go, guys, stay curious. You don't know what's going to happen next. And I use that term all the time, stay curious. Yep. Don't assume anything's good or bad. Just stay curious and let's see how we can make it work for us going forward. And I loved hearing that come out of the general manager's mouth. Just stay curious. Because I think that it's such a great teaching point for young people. And that's they're young. You got some young people that are going to be absolutely transformational on that team. But you have to build that sense of, one play at a time. Nothing's ever the end. Nothing's ever, and I think his I think the way he speaks makes me very excited about how he's going to build this team.
It's very big picture.
Very
and
big picture.
I know that some of the big words maybe deter some, but ultimately, I've joked with people. I believe that this is how James Gladstone speaks to his friends and family.
Yep.
And so therefore, he's being his authentic self. And is that not what we all want?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that's how people are most successful. I truly do. Just be authentic. That's all you got to be. Be you. And he says it so often. I know he says it to the team, and I think that's invaluable.
Let's pivot, Mayor Donna Deegan, to the new stadium of the future.
Yes.
Since I know that's what so many of our Heeligans, that's what we affectionately refer to our listeners as. The Heeligans, they want to talk stadium. They want to talk downtown construction. And we greatly appreciate your time and kind of outlining for us what we know, what is still to come. People are excited. Driving through downtown Jacksonville when they see the construction that has already started around
Cranes in the air.
Stadium.
That's what we like.
Cranes in the air. It's not just rendering season. What exactly is...
We've retired that, okay?
Yes,
no more city of renderings.
We are now the city of cranes. We are the city of cranes here in Jacksonville. What stage are we currently in when it comes to stadium construction?
Well, they've begun the process, okay? So a lot of what is happening right now are not going to be things you're necessarily going to see externally, but the prep has begun, and to the point where they've closed off portions of the stadium where that has to take place. As you know, we're calling it a renovation, but it's truly, I mean, it's like almost a studs up sort of situation. So that's begun. But I think really where people are going to see the greatest impact, obviously, is going to be in the next season. Not this coming season, but the season after. And that I think we'll only have, I want to say like 45,000 seats that'll be available during that season. And there'll be all sorts of construction all over the place. And I think it's going to be, fun to try to deal with all that. But we already have a team together between JSO and JTA and city officials, and we're working on a plan to make sure that between public transit and how we can configure those things, that we make it as smooth as possible as we can for people, knowing that with construction there's going to be a bit of a pain, but it is a pain very much worth having.
We're lucky to have the Jaguars. We're lucky to have you as our mayor. We're also lucky to have Shad Khan as the owner of the Jags. Tell people about your relationship and what he means to the city.
I agree with that so much. I have just been so impressed with Mr. Khan and his dedication. He takes so many shots just because he happens to be a wealthy man. Why can't he just pay for everything? Well, that's probably not how he became wealthy. But at the end of the day, he's invested over $1 billion in our city. I mean, he said he was going to bring a Four Seasons here. He did it. He has really, I think, taken the identity of Jacksonville, not only beyond Jacksonville, but to London, which I know some people feel a certain way about. Right. I think it's fantastic. We have all sorts of international fans now. People know more about Jacksonville than they've ever known. And it's really helped us in the business community too. So he has truly embraced this city in a way that he's made some investments out at the beach too. Mm-hmm. And I think he's going to be here for the long haul. Obviously, we know for the 30 years of the lease at least, but I'm hoping and praying that people in Jacksonville can really understand that he has been a very, not in the same way as the Weavers necessarily, who are extraordinarily wonderful and generous and amazing people in our philanthropic community and in other ways, but he has really invested in this team and in this city downtown in a way that we really needed, and I'm very appreciative of him. And he also seems completely unaffected by whatever the chattering class says, which I appreciate because I'm sure it can be hard.
Yeah, I wish I had that ability that Shad Khan has of like, there's all this chatter and he just stays on task.
He doesn't read the text line or social media.
It's the only way to survive, my friend. The only way to survive.
Exactly. Mayor Donna Deegan joining us in studio. Speaking of the cranes, speaking of Shad Khan, the development of the shipyards, not just the portion of the shipyards that Shad Khan has purchased. I know there's some other developers who are also expected to come into the area and continue to develop the riverfront along the St. Johns River. I love how I've been able to drive downtown the last 3 weeks or so, Donna, and I've been able to see that there are windows in place in that office building.
Isn't that cool?
For me, that is, and actually, speaking of the text line, we've had a couple listeners who have texted in and said that they have construction crews who are a part of all the efforts downtown, and it is one of those things where it's tangible. You're seeing it. Any updates you maybe have as far as some of the other development in downtown around the stadium
Well,
area.
listen, that is, and I'm glad you're getting texts about this, because one of the things about our agreement with the Jaguars is they're going to be really helping us develop the workforce and putting a lot of local people to work, not only on that stadium, but part of the community benefit agreement is investing in that whole riverfront park system. So all of that is funded because of that $300 million community benefit agreement, which is the largest in NFL history. So what you're seeing there is just the beginning. You go a little further down the river walk, and you get to Mosh, and you have the Naval Museum, and you have all those wonderful playgrounds that are going up, and a lot of green space too, which is what we really want. We want people to feel like it's their riverfront and they want to come down and spend time there. And so we are to the point now in Jacksonville where people know we are moving, and it's a great place to be in. And I think what people are going to see in this city over the next 2 or 3 years is quite the transformation on the downtown riverfront.
I'm envisioning, much like Florida men's basketball got to celebrate the national championship in San Antonio with that riverfront parade.
Yes.
We need the Jaguars, after they win the Super Bowl, to also have a riverfront parade along the St. John's. And that way, then the NFL can stop using the landing pictures and start using those pictures when they show Jacksonville.
I say that we put that out in the universe right now because that sounds like a wonderful idea to me. and I too agree that we should stop using the landing, which is no longer there.
Right.
But in a few months we're going to unveil an absolutely astounding park there, which is going to be incredible for people to see.
I was going to ask you, what exactly is the update on that portion? Because I know I drove past it and I was like, landing? What happened to you?
No,
where is my green
phase
space?
1 is already. You're going to see it completed by next fall.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an amazing elevated playground, but all sorts of other amenities there too. There will eventually be a restaurant there. We're in the process now of talking to City Council about a development that may go up in the corner parcel. That would have a beer garden and restaurant and other things there too. So that's all a work in process. But the phase 1 will be available for people to come and visit and play in and enjoy in a matter of months.
Restaurant, beer garden, that's music to Lauren Brooks in my ears. Mayor Deegan, I don't know if you've seen, but there's plenty of the leaks are circulating as far as the schedule release, which of course will be released for all 32 NFL clubs. 8 p.m. NFL Network this evening. Any team that you've seen, maybe this is one I've got circled on the calendar for the Big Cats to face, whether that's a home or away game this year that you're looking forward to?
No, I always look forward to the games with the Titans and the Colts in particular because I really don't like either one of those teams at all.
Now you can add the Texans to that.
Yeah, I'll add the Texans on there too. That's true. I think those are always the ones that I look forward to the most. But I can't wait for football season. It's just always such a tragedy for me when football season is over.
And sometimes that happens earlier than other seasons. See the previous conversation about Florida State.
Hopefully not this year. Yes,
Jaguars.
well, that's true. Yeah.
I'm excited to see, for me in particular, the Denver game, the Jaguars playing the Broncos, and then Vegas. We went to Vegas last year, so those are always fun. My cousin lives in Denver, but she's a diehard Jags fan, so we would go as Jags fans to that. And it just harkens back to the rivalry, not really rivalry, but the history between the Jags and the Broncos.
Yeah. You remember the guy, the Denver columnist that called us the Jaguars?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
I said rivalry.
One Woody Page.
Rivalry,
I said his name. You
there
did.
is a little rivalry there with, going back to the playoffs in the 90s.
Yeah.
As we continue our conversation regarding downtown Jacksonville, the stadium of the future, your Jacksonville Jaguars, as far as the London games go, seeing just one London game on the schedule, at least according to what the NFL has released as of this writing, the belief is that the Jaguars will only play one game this year. That was something I know, Mayor Deegan, that was really central to you, the Jaguars, as you worked through the proposal for the new stadium lease.
Yeah, we had everybody crunching numbers, and I had two things that were paramount for me, both of which caused me a problem for a while. And one was I absolutely told my team we had to hit this date and be done with this because I didn't want to get into budget season, didn't want to see, we saw what ended up happening during the season, right? I wanted that deal done, and I wanted it done on deadline. And as you know, with negotiations, that's not always the easiest thing. So, but we got that done, and I was very excited about it. But one of the things I was afraid was going to be a hitch in the giddy up was going to be the London games. And I remember, saying to Shad that, listen, they will run me out of town on a rail if I give away another home game. So please,
especially with a new stadium,
Yeah.
renovated, but it's going to feel like a new stadium.
right. So that was absolutely. I know it sounds like crazy that could be a sticking point, but for me, it was a really, really big deal to make sure that we didn't have to take a bunch of home games and take them overseas.
Well, especially when you've just gotten the taxpayers to be on board with this plan, even though they didn't have to necessarily vote for it. But you get them on board. You don't want to say, oh, well, you're only going to get, say, 6 home games in a season.
Well, look, I will say this, though, and as you continue to look at a possible, expansion schedule, part of this continues to be affordability, right? So if you end up with a lot more home games, how much more are people going to be paying for their season tickets? It is always going to be a discussion of where's the balance there. So I do think that people perhaps aren't looking at that whole big picture. I don't know what will happen with the expansion games, but I do think we're at we're in a situation now where we're going to have a new stadium. I'm sure prices will go up because of that. We also want to make sure that people that live in Jacksonville can still see their Jaguars. So that's all part of the equation. But we really were excited to see that one game. Yeah.
We're live with Mayor Donna Deegan, not only on 92.5 FM, 1010 AM, but also broadcasting live, YouTube, Facebook, and X. And one of our YouTube commenters, Mayor Deegan, asked about the possibility of hosting an NFL draft. Some of those other big picture ideas. I know, like you said, there's a committee in place that's looking forward to opportunities the new stadium of the future could bring. Next year, we do know that while it won't take place at a stadium or outside of a stadium, the NFL draft will take place on the Washington Monument, in the middle of all of that is Washington, D.C. What do you make of some of the possibilities, even outside of just games, of events that could come to downtown Jacksonville?
I do love the idea of having an NFL draft here. That would be so fun. I mean, where would you put those people? I guess we could put them along the riverfront, or we could put them on this. I guess the slab's not quite big enough for that. I don't know. We would find a place.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to get clipped. I can already tell you that one. They're going to love that. They're going to run with it.
Jacksonville would be great. I think we'll probably get a draft before we get a Super Bowl, just because we got to build a few more hotels before that happens. But sure. I mean, the whole hope with this new stadium is that we're going to be able to attract all sorts of wonderful talent to Jacksonville, not only sports, which I would love to see us become part of the playoff system. Mm-hmm. That's something that we absolutely deserve, because this is such an incredible college town too. People love their college sports here. And I think that would be a wonderful thing, and all kinds of concerts and other things that stadium will bring to us, in addition to the fact that it's just, once you build out the whole entertainment district around that, it's just going to be such an attraction for downtown. And of course, that's one of my big priorities. So I can't wait for it to be done.
For sure. When people tell me they don't like Jacksonville, I always come back with, you just haven't been to the right parts of Jacksonville.
I think that's true.
Our downtown may not be there yet, but that's why we're having these conversations about what's going to happen in the future. We don't want to be a city that only has a couple different places that you can go within walking distance of the stadium.
Yeah. Well, look, we're a city of amazing neighborhoods. We have amazing neighborhoods, and within those neighborhoods, there are wonderful things to do. And I think sometimes when people think of downtown, and this is why I always talk to people about the importance of downtown, when they think of downtown, they say, well, so there's not much going on in Jacksonville. That's what they say. But we need that vibrant downtown so that people will change their perceptions of our city, in addition to the fact that it'll bring us a lot of economic development. But I'm so excited to see what's happening. And I think when people do come here from other cities, they do get excited about Jacksonville, sometimes more than the people who currently live here. And that's one of my goals as mayor, is to get people fired up and excited about their own city. We got the greatest city in the world here. I mean, we're on the ocean, we're on the river,
Mm-hmm.
we got all these wonderful, amenities. We have great people, and I think that you're starting to see those little flickers, come for people in Jacksonville, I think.
As we get ready to start wrapping up with you, Mayor Donna Deegan, here on 1010XL Helmets and Heels, we hear a lot by virtue of what the name of this program is, what this program means in the world of radio. We are the first all-female daily sports talk show in an NFL market. You have, I'm sure, a time or two heard about being the first female in many walks of life, including as the mayor of Jacksonville, Florida. When you hear that, what comes to mind?
Well, it's just great pride. I mean, I think that women belong everywhere. And I think we generally bring a whole lot to a conversation, or to an outlook, or to how we manage or how we lead. We bring a lot to that process that you maybe haven't seen before. it is interesting to navigate the world of men in sports and government and all those things, but it's an honor and it's a privilege, and I love being the mayor of the city, and I think that having you all here doing this job every day should encourage more and more women to get into not only this type of a job, but maybe into sports too. I'd love to see more young women. I love the fact that we're seeing more of that in our city.
It's crazy to think when I was growing up, sports talk radio was just beginning in Jacksonville full time, and there was not a single female in this type of business in Jacksonville until the early 2010s. So we went, 20 years plus with no women in this job and in this industry, and now we have an entire show dedicated to not just female sports, of course, but us in our perspective. Like, to your point, what's the most challenging thing about this job for you?
Oh dear.
How much time we got?
I think the politics, honestly. I came into this because I love the city so much, and I feel like I have an ability to communicate, to bring people together, to lead. I think that's been something that I've been able in my life to make good things happen, and I'm so grateful for that. And it is frustrating for me when politics get in the way of that. But we've been able to accomplish a whole lot, and I'm very, very grateful to the council and to all the people that work with me to make our city move forward. So I would say politics. If we could get rid of that, it'd be a perfect job. Beyond that, I love it.
I'm on board. And by the way, also thank you for all that you've done with the Donna Foundation and the different races. I know you just had a new one pop up this past weekend, right, in Riverside.
That's our Mother's Day 5K. We do that during Mother's Day, and then October we'll have our players 5K over at the PGA at the Players Championship, and then of course the big race will be in February when we run our marathon and half marathon for women with breast cancer. So it's been a joy to do all those things. I have been so fortunate in my life. I mean, honestly, I don't know what more I could possibly want to do. But this is a fantastic job, and I think Jacksonville is moving in a great direction.
Absolutely. My mom and I do the 5K at the Players Championship every year, and so it's so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
I appreciate
Well, whenever
that.
your office ends, whenever your mayoral time ends, you can just come join our show full time.
Exactly.
Okay.
We have a fourth chair for a reason.
Sounds like a plan.
We're ready for you. So like you said, Mayor Deegan, you're counting down till football season. What other sports are you occupying with your time? The little free time that you do have, are you watching basketball?
Yeah, I've been
hockey?
a little dialed into the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say it's at the top of my list, but I watch the playoffs. Yeah. I'm always watching FSU baseball. That's a close second to FSU football for me. I really do love it, and softball. Our FSU women's softball team is incredible. I love the fact that we have the Upshot League that's coming here, the new basketball team, the new soccer team. I mean, women's sports are coming to Jacksonville in a way that we've had them for a while. I don't want anybody to say, I know we have a women's basketball team. I know that we have had other, but I think that the amount of the level and the attention that is coming to women's sports at a time when women's sports are really starting to get into the fore, especially women's basketball. Is becoming so popular. I want to see us continue to bring those events to Jacksonville that highlight those things. And I think anytime you can bring a major sporting event to the city, that's a win.
And of course, I know longtime friend of yours, Donna Orender, the former WNBA commissioner.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's behind the Upshot League,
yep.
and she's adorable. She literally, I've never seen a more excited human in my life than Donna Orender, and that's what makes the magic work with her, I think.